I don't know about you, but I've had many a health condition in my life, some not very serious, some a little more serious, but I've been doing a bit of research and it seems like many of them are more common in autistic people. Now, first up, I am not a doctor, I am not a health professional in any way. I am an autistic artist with a YouTube channel, so a lot of information I give today should be taken with a pinch of salt. Well, I say a pinch of salt, I don't actually know what that means. Ah, so that's what it means. You can pause this if you like, but as it's AI internet, I would say to take this with a pinch of salt too. Health condition number one is gallstones and gallbladder disease. And I have gallstones, and it's a really painful condition at times. And I was actually gaslit by my GP over this because I kept going back with quite severe stomach pain, but I'd just get the whole kind of rolly eye thing at me. So I just kept having to go back with this intermittent stomach pain until I could get a scan, and it confirmed that I've got gallstones and some polyps as well. So I'm now on a waiting list to get my gallbladder removed, which I don't really want to do, but I'm at a stage now where I don't have a lot of options left. So to raise a little bit of awareness about gallbladder disease, I'm just going to talk you through some signs and symptoms to be aware of. So for me, I'd get quite a severe pain to the right of my stomach, and it was intermittent, and I deduced that some foods actually made it worse, and the worst for me was actually chia seeds. And once I got the pain, it would last for a few days, and there was very little I could do in terms of pain relief for it, so it's very sore. Gallbladder pain also can radiate towards the back and the right shoulder, and weirdly I get like a nerve pain in my neck as well that I'm convinced is related to gallbladder issues as well. And having gallstones can actually escalate into an emergency situation, so if you get one stuck essentially. And the signs and symptoms to look out for are a high temperature, persistent pain, and yellowing of the eyes and the skin, so it's jaundice essentially. So that would be a situation that you'd need to get yourself to A&E or emergency services. Health condition number two is another stomach related issue, and it's ulcers. Signs of stomach ulcers include like a gnawing pain in the middle of your stomach, which may well worsen when you eat certain foods like citrus or acidic foods, but you may have no signs whatsoever. And I had a suspected ulcer a few years ago. I didn't have a scan or anything, so it was never confirmed, but it was just horrendously painful, to be honest. And it's a really common condition, but more prevalent in autistic people. And this study confirms that autistic people are really at risk of many stomach related issues, and it's something that we should all really be aware of. And like gallstones, stomach ulcers can lead to an emergency situation because stomach ulcers can burst and cause all sorts of problems. So again, this is something that you'd need to seek emergency care for. Health condition number three is bruxism, and it's essentially like grinding of your teeth, and it's a really common condition, and it can actually cause damage to your teeth if it goes on for some time. And this study on Saudi preschool children showed a marked increase in incidence of bruxism in the study group compared to those in the control group. And I've had bruxism on and off for years now, and for me it's kind of like one of many anxiety responses. So it just causes your jaw to clench, and it can do it during sleep or while you're awake. And to combat bruxism, you can actually get bespoke mouth guards that you can sleep in at night, but that's if you can get on with them, because they are quite difficult things to get used to. And in fact, I only lasted one night with mine before I just decided it wasn't for me really. Health condition number four is tinnitus, and again this is another really common health issue, but more common in autistic people. and I have tinnitus, and interestingly my partner Ian has tinnitus as well, and he has had his for years, and it's the typical kind of high-pitched noise he has going on, and it's there all the time, which must be horrendous. Mine is quite different actually, and I started getting tinnitus as a consequence of perimenopause, and it's like a really low noise that I get, which is kind of reminiscent of like a car engine, so it's almost like a David Lynch kind of soundscape in many ways, but thankfully it's intermittent for me. But for many people, it really is just a horrible condition. Health condition number 5 is endometriosis. And it comes as no surprise to me to learn that endo is more common in autistic people, because the longer that I've been researching this video, the more apparent it is to me that there's just a whole host of conditions that are more common in autistic people. And also polycystic ovary syndrome seems to be more common in autistic people as well. And I know for me, I've had horrendous period pain, I'd say since my early 30s, and it just gets to the point where I just can't do anything. I have to stay in bed with a hot water bottle, painkillers, etc. And I just have to wait for the pain to pass. And I've been to my GP endless times about this, and each and every time I just get given painkillers, and I'm just told that it's part and parcel of the menstrual cycle. And you know, this just isn't good enough, is it? If you're in really bad pain, then surely that needs investigating. But it just got to the point where I've kind of given up, really. And it was actually Ian that pointed out that, you know, I possibly have endo, because he saw something on social media and he was just like, gosh, that's exactly how Lizzie experiences it. And it's just gotten to the point where I just can't be bothered going to my GP and banging on about the same stuff all the time, because I've got a number of health issues. It's just another thing to have to talk about. So I don't know what to do about that really, but it's just not good enough, is it? Autistic people need proper healthcare. And it's also thought to be the case that autistics will struggle more in perimenopause. And I have a whole video about this, so I'll link that down below so you can check it out after this one. Health condition number 6 is an increased risk of bone fractures. And speaking just for me, I've had no end of bone fractures in my life. I've lost count if I'm honest, but I think it's somewhere between 15 and 20, so it's quite a substantial amount, isn't it? And it's thought the reason for this is that autistic people have a lower bone mineral density going on, so I guess there could be any number of factors for reasons as to why, really. We know that many autistic children have restricted diets. They may well have food sensitivities, sensory issues around foods, or food allergies. So they're not eating the whole kind of gamut of foods that allistic children or neurotypical children would be doing. And because of this, it leads to nutrition deficiencies, and this can create all sorts of problems later on in life. I've got osteoporosis, for instance. I was diagnosed in my mid-40s, and I can look back now and really see, particularly in childhood, that I just wasn't eating all the right kinds of food that I should have been doing, and certainly in my young adult years as well. I only wanted to eat what I was comfortable with and what I enjoyed, really, and I think obviously that's now led to an issue with my bones, and it's something that I'm very mindful of, and I'll need to be really careful with as I get older. Health condition number 7 is an increased risk of choking. And for me, this has just been a massive issue that's gone on since I think my early 20s, but I choke on my own spit so easily, and it's so frustrating that I have to be really mindful about, well, not trying to choke on my spit, but also I need to be careful with drinks, because that can start like a whole choking thing. as well, and it's just something that I've yeah, it's just been a thing and I hate it so much. So basically, autistic people are more likely to have a condition called dysphagia, which causes problems with choking, and it also causes problems with swallowing as well. And I do remember having issues with swallowing as a child, actually, and I'll probably talk about that in a video where I discuss my traits as an autistic girl. But it was, yeah, just really challenging to eat food. And these days, my choking has escalated to a condition called laryngospasm, where basically my whole kind of throat seals over, and it's really frightening because I cannot breathe for however long this kind of spasm in my throat goes on. And it may only be 10 seconds, but it feels like an eternity. However, for me, I think laryngospasm is more related to my mast cell disorder than it is to dysphagia. But I just wanted to talk about this in this video, that if you are having issues with choking, it's really common in autistic people. Health condition number 8 is ingrown toenails, and interestingly, it's not just autistic people that struggle or are more likely to have ingrown toenails. It's thought that people with ADHD and those with OCD as well often struggle with this health issue. And although it can seem like something kind of really small and almost insignificant, it can be a really painful condition, and people have operations to deal with the issue because it can be just so uncomfortable. And it's thought that autistic children often have difficulties with looking after their feet, such as, basic foot hygiene or cutting their nails. And also are more likely to kind of pick at their nails, because I used to be dreadful for that as a child, and certainly that's how I've ended up with ingrown toenail. It's a really painful condition. Health condition number 9 is otitis media, or ear infections. Now, I think it's fairly well known that there's a link between ear infections and autism, but today I wanted to talk about eustachian tube dysfunction, because it's thought it can be a contributing factor to ear infections in people. And your eustachian tubes will connect your middle ear to your throat and your nose. And in eustachian tube dysfunction, that's quite the series of words there, it can create a host of symptoms, including tinnitus, but also like ear fullness and some hearing issues as well it may cause. And for me, I get like a really distracting cracking noise going on in my ears as well. And you know what we're like as autistic people, any additional kind of sensory stuff going on can cause quite a lot of distress, can't it? So yeah, it can be quite all-consuming a condition. So while there's no direct evidence to link eustachian tube dysfunction with autistic people, or there being a higher prevalence of this condition within the autistic community, I just wanted to raise awareness of it today, really, because it's thought to be one of the kind of leading reasons as to why people develop otitis media or various other conditions with their middle ear, really. So yeah, that's why it's getting a special mention today. Health condition number 10 is astigmatism. And to be honest, I found out that there's loads of eye conditions that are more prevalent in autistic people, but astigmatism is a big one. And it's essentially when your eyes are a slightly different shape, actually. They become more kind of curved at the end. So they're kind of more rugby ball shaped than rounds. And that in itself can cause issues with blurry vision. You may have headaches, you may need to kind of squint a bit more, and you may well have difficulty seeing at night. And this is a big one for me because I've always found it really difficult driving at night, and I've always avoided it where possible because it's just so distracting when you see somebody's kind of headlights coming up. It just creates all sorts of distortions for me. So I I just find it too frightening, really, driving at night. So yeah, it's interesting that this is more common in autistic people. I was also really interested to learn that both nearsightedness and farsightedness, or their fancy names, myopia and hyperopia, are both more common within the autistic community. Also, a condition called strabismus is more common in autistic people, and this is when your eyes aren't properly aligned, so it may cause all sorts of issues for you as a result. So you may have kind of double vision, or you may have to kind of squint at things to look at them properly, or look at them with one eye. And this is so interesting because we all think, you know, which parent did I get autism from? And I know that my mum has an issue with this actually. I don't know that she was ever diagnosed, but certainly, yeah, there was evidence that she had this condition. And also, autistic people are more likely to have issues with their optic nerves. And this is really interesting for me because I had loads of issues with my eyes going on a few years ago, and I had loads of checks done at the hospital, and they deduced that I've got something a bit awry going on with my optic nerve, and basically I shouldn't have any peripheral vision with the way that my optic nerves are. I wasn't actually given a diagnosis, or at least they didn't tell me a diagnosis, but yeah, it was quite frightening to be told that. But they've said that I've had this condition since birth, and whether or not it will get worse, I don't know. But gosh, it was so interesting to find this out, and it's really interesting to find out all of this stuff actually, because I don't know about you, but I really struggle with imposter syndrome as a recently diagnosed autistic person, and I'm forever wondering, you know, did they really get this right? But the more that I research this kind of stuff, the more that I'm very aware that I'm autistic. And these are just a handful of conditions that I found out are more prevalent within the autistic community, because they're things that I've invariably had at some stage in my life, among many others actually, that I've still to research. But I was just astounded that the more health conditions that I looked into, the more it was apparent that autistic people really struggle with a whole plethora of health conditions, or at least they're more common within our community. And we have to ask the question, why? Is it because of our physiological makeup? Is it because we're more prone to kind of immune system disorders because of years of masking and years of trauma? Or is it something else? I think it's another area that needs desperately researching so that we can better advocate for ourselves and each other. And I just really wanted to talk about these health conditions today because I think we're all very used to talking about either immune system disorders or autoimmune diseases within autistic people, because they're very prevalent. You know, we hear about EDS all the time, or Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and the trifecta as well. So it's common for autistic people to have EDS, MCAS and POTS. But I think we should be shining a light on all of the other health conditions that are more common within autistic people to raise awareness, really. So I'd be really interested to hear if you can relate to any of the health condition examples that I've given in today's video. And I'd also be interested to hear if you have other health conditions, if you do a little bit of Googling, whether or not they're more prevalent in autistic people, because I think this all needs shining a light on, doesn't it? We all need to understand why we're more prone to certain health conditions, and very many health conditions at that. So thank you for watching. Give it a like if you got this far, and I'll see you again soon.